The Mariners pull off a gutsy win against the Atlanta Braves, the best in baseball right now. We got some great reader questions from you guys as well, so let's chat.
Baseball stuff! Baseball stuff!
Well, welcome to the Hold My Trident podcast here. I'm Emily with Up West Sports, and I'm just so glad to be here tonight, especially smiling because the Mariners pulled off a win. I was not sure going into the ninth inning with Munoz and how things have been going, if he was going to be able to pull off the save. And I put out on my Twitter, I just said, I really hope that Munoz can pull this off because I have to go hop on a podcast and I would much rather be happy than sad on a podcast tonight. So here we are. It was a great game. That was awesome. Before we get started, though, I want to remind you, please like this post and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Exciting news. We hit 1,000 subscribers with Up West this week on YouTube, which is huge for our team, huge for all of us. We've all been working so hard to bring content for you across the entire Seattle sports spectrum. We have our hands in all the different places, and it's been really fun. So please hit that subscribe button for us and join us here at Up West Sports. It's been such a fun thing to be a part of. But anyway, what a game. That was awesome. And really, honestly, going into the sixth inning, it really kind of felt like it was going to be the same song and dance that we've been seeing from the Mariners for the last pretty well just through the Royals series. I mean, they had that great road trip going 5-1, sweeping the Cardinals and taking 2 out of 3 against the Twins. And then we got swept by the Royals, who are, arguably at this point, one of the worst teams in baseball. And they came into Seattle and stomped on us. So it was really nice to see tonight that we could get that first game against Atlanta, who are, as of right now, by record, the best team in baseball. And so having that first win, especially as gutsy and chaotic as it was really great to see. I want to also remind you that while we are here tonight, I want to make sure that you know that we're going to be doing a mailbag at the end of this. I have some reader questions and listener questions that I've been gathering on Facebook and YouTube and on Twitter as well, or X if you want to call it that. I'll never call it that, but all the more power to you. I've been gathering those through the last couple of days. And so if you have questions, please just drop them in the comment section and I will answer them when we get to that segment here towards the end. And if you have any comments throughout this time, I'd love to, I'll pop those up there too, and we can chat about it. So chatting about tonight's game, I want to just huge shout out to our bullpen. That is missing 2 of our highest leverage guys because they announced today that Gabe Spire is now on the injured list. Of course, Matt Brash is gone as well. And then, of course, the other half of the battery, who's usually back there, Cal Raleigh, he is out indefinitely. We don't really have an answer on that. He hasn't been added to the IL, but he also hasn't been said it's not going to happen. There's just so much going on with the Mariners right now on the injury side, things like that. I was just really encouraged to see what we saw today from our team. It looked a lot more cohesive. Of course, there were some challenging things that we'll get to, but all things considered, there was some pretty huge improvements on major fronts tonight. First of all, really cool story to see J.R. Ritchie out there tonight on the mound for Atlanta. He's a Seattle born and bred young man. He is just tonight was his 3rd major league start. So he's just a young rookie guy. And he, I think it was Aaron Goldsmith. It was either Aaron Goldsmith or Dave Valley on the broadcast tonight talking about how they were talking to somebody and how they thought that this might actually have more nerves for him than his first start because he's playing against his childhood team. And he had some challenges out there for sure. He gave up some walks and some hits. And of course, the 3-run home run out there, there's, actually, sorry, I'll have to double check. I don't think he was on the mound still for that part. I honestly, at that point, I was a little bit out of touch because I was feeling really frustrated about where I thought we were going to land. But yeah, just a really cool story. And one of my friends, and she actually gave me a question that I will share at the end here when we do the mailbag. She was talking about how he was here and watched the entire 15-inning playoff game in Seattle when we played the Tigers in the ALDS. So yeah, just really cool story, really cool young kid, and always great to see these young Seattle guys make it to the pros. Love that for him. And yeah, fun to watch him out there. I was also really impressed tonight by our defense. There were so many hard hit balls off of Logan Gilbert tonight, not even just including the 4 solo home runs that he gave up. And I'll get to Logan here in a minute, but there at some point, I can't remember who shared the stat, and I should have just screenshotted the tweet, but at that point, out of the balls that were put in play off of Logan Gilbert, 8 out of the 9 had an exit velocity of over 95 miles an hour. And I think it was 6 out of 9 or 5 out of 9 were over 100 miles an hour. He was giving up so much hard contact tonight. And so we saw Randy out there making some great plays in left field. We saw Leo Rivas making some great plays at third base. Our defense looked really, really good tonight. And that's against a powerhouse of an offense in Atlanta. And so I was really encouraged to see that. Logan Gilbert looked rough again. It wasn't quite as bad. And I made a comment last night to Gavin when we were on here live last night that I said that if Logan Gilbert went 6 innings and that if he made it a full 6 innings, I would have some sort of beverage to cheers with as to celebrate. But I felt like I couldn't quite pull that together because when you give up 3 solo home runs in an inning, it's just not. Yeah. Logan Gilbert is one of my favorite players on the team just for who he is as a person. He's a really incredible man. He's a great teammate. He's great in the clubhouse. He's a really good guy, but he just has not had it. And he's really lacking efficiency, and he's giving up a ton of hard contact right now. And that is concerning, especially when your defense is struggling. And tonight, our defense did a really, really good job. And so they were able to prevent the things that could be prevented, but you can't prevent home runs that are sailing a long ways. That first home run off of Drake Baldwin in the first inning, and then going on to the home runs later in the 6th inning as well, those 3 solo shots. Yeah, those are not preventable by anybody other than your pitcher. And he was just hanging so much over the plate, and it bit him multiple times. So 1 run over a quality start, but it's hard to, it felt rough. And multiple people were commenting throughout the game that up until that point where he was giving up those home runs, it was just this kind of feeling of he's really struggling, and you could see it, and even though the score didn't reflect it, he didn't look great out there. Like, he didn't look like he really had it, and he didn't look really comfortable, while also giving up a ton of hard contact. And hard contact is usually the predecessor to home runs or to extra base hits and things like that. Our bullpen, like I was saying before, really stepped it up with the fact that we don't have Spire, we don't have Matt Brash. You've got Ferrer who goes 1.1, you've got Bizzardo who wraps up that inning, and then you've got Munoz who comes out for the save. And Munoz has been really struggling, and he's been struggling with giving up. He's been giving up contact, he's been giving up home runs, he's been giving up walks, but he went out there, and apart from the 1 base hit, his slider looked like it had something extra tonight. His slider looked like the Munoz slider that we all know and love and rave about and people talk about. He looked like our closer tonight, and that, you can't understate that, because in order for the Mariners to make a run at anything this year, he's going to have to look like himself, because without him, especially with guys who are on the IL and we don't know what their future really looks like right now, what it's going to look like for them going forward, you have to have a Munoz who looks like himself, and Munoz looked like himself tonight. Then, of course, you've got a Luke Raley 3-run home run and a JP 2-run home run all in the 6th inning. And, I would have loved to see the Mariners capitalize with their offense a little bit more, because we had the bases loaded other times as well. We had the bases loaded with 2 outs, and Mitch Garver came up. I would have loved to see some capitalizing on that. Cole Young had a moment where he struck out on a pitch that was way outside, that he got really fooled by a sweeper. Just unfortunate, but also the fact that we got 5 runs, unanswered runs. The Braves didn't score again. They weren't really getting a lot of there was definitely contact, and they were definitely on the bases, but those home runs, other than those home runs, there wasn't a lot going on, right? They didn't have any they didn't score any runs off of other than home runs, right? That's what I'm trying to say. And, ultimately 5 runs was enough to hold it down. And going into that inning, it didn't look like the Mariners were going to be able to do much of anything. And then they capitalized. And that's the biggest thing, I think, right now for the M's is, are they going to be able to capitalize on the moments that they're handed? And so far in this season, that has not been the case, but they did that tonight. And that was incredible. So we have game 1 against the Braves locked down. That's great. We'll see what tomorrow and Wednesday hold for us. I get to be at tomorrow's game with my middle guy. His baseball team gets to be there as like their whole organization is having their night there. So that's really fun and exciting. So I'll be there for that. I hope we see a win like we did tonight. But we'll have to see. I was going to talk a little bit about the matchups for the next 2 games. We've got Bryce Elder tomorrow versus George Kirby. And then on Wednesday, we have Grant Holmes for the Braves against Brian Wu. Looking at Bryce Elder, he has been very good this year already. He's got a 1.88 ERA. He's been pitching really, really well. He's got a really great slider, really great four seam. That slider he uses really pretty equally against both handednesses of batters, but he's got a four seam that he uses a lot against lefties. And I think that it's gonna be interesting to see because we don't have our switch hitter in Cal, and of course Brendan Donovan is out, but as a right-handed hitter or right-handed pitcher, excuse me, it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out with our lineup because, we'll have some lefties out there. And so it'll be interesting to see how that four-seam performs because I was looking at the Baseball Savant page and he's got really good fastball value. And then he's got a sinker that he uses against righties as well. Bryce Elder's just been really, really great. And then, George Kirby, he and Emerson Hancock have been kind of holding down the fort as our most effective and efficient starting pitchers. And, hoping for just more of the same. George Kirby, he's just been working so hard over the last couple of years of not getting frustrated if he gives up a walk or things like that. It's just going to be I'm really curious to see how he does tomorrow, especially if the Braves bats heat up a little bit and hoping he can kind of just stay calm and not let the frustration get to him. And then on Wednesday, I think all Mariners fans are just going to be watching to see if Brian Wu can turn it around. I mean, you don't ever really see him have to get shelled twice in a row. And of course, his last start was not quite as much of a shelling as the week prior in St. Louis, but still 2 very uncharacteristic starts for Brian Wu. And so I think all eyes will be locked on that to see if he, what he's able to do. I really, really hope he just comes out. Did I say tomorrow? I meant Wednesday. I hope he just comes out and is absolutely dominant. And then, of course, we're pitching on the mound for Atlanta. You've got Grant Holmes. He's sporting a 4.34 ERA. So I'm just looking at my notes here because I did a lot of research today because the stuff just fascinates me. He's got a slider and a four seam kind of as well, but he has a couple of really great off-speed pitches. He hasn't been quite as effective this year as I'm sure he would like to be, but we'll see what happens because we have this thing with pitchers who aren't doing super well where we make them look like Cy Young Award winners and then we give them career games of 12 strikeouts or whatever. Anyway, so really fascinating with that. I had a couple of comments here I wanted to show really quick before we move on to the next thing from Taco44X. Yes, huge win. Huge win. You cannot understate what this win. I'm a very hyperbolic person, so I tend to make things a lot bigger than they actually need to be, just because that's who I am as a person. And I don't think you can overstate what this game means for our team right now, because seeing what we saw and having offense, having runners on the base paths, getting walks, of course we had the whole inning of that, all those runs, you had the hit by pitch on Leo Rivas and just they capitalized. And so having this win, I really hope that this kind of lights a fire under the team's butts and they start to play as we know that they can. The next one from the King Chronic, big win tonight. Wonder what the moves will be when Robles and Donovan come back into the fold over the next couple of weeks to a month. Yeah, that's a really fair point and a really good question. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Obviously Leo will not be playing at third base anymore. I think Brendan Donovan will go back out there. I don't foresee anything changing out there. And other than Brendan Donovan slotting back into that spot, I don't think we're going to see a lot of changes in the infield. or in the outfield. As for Victor Robles, I don't know. I think we're going to go back to the platoon that we've seen. So you're probably going to see the same kind of like righty versus lefty, kind of that handedness playing in the splits. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I think it's good. There's so much going on right now, right, with the Mariners and injuries and things like that. I just don't know. I think we're all just kind of wondering how that's going to shake out, but we'll see. And then from the great Gregor, you might have mentioned it already, but any chance Kel's back tomorrow? I have not heard anything. I would say my guess is probably not. I think they're trying to maximize as much time as possible before having to designate him to the IL and see how long they can sit him for. And I think they want to avoid an IL stint for him, but at the same time, I think it's just we're gonna have to wait and see. I know that I know Shannon Drayer mentioned it, and I think Daniel Kramer mentioned it as well, that he was taking some batting practice swings before the game today, and that he said he felt really good, but tomorrow's kind of the like time will tell. So I think all eyes will be on tomorrow. But my guess is probably not, but we'll see. I would wager that unless something comes out in his, somebody can let me know in the comments if this has been said. I don't think anybody said anything about this, but I think they're still waiting on MRI results or kind of to see like how those look. I didn't see if there was like a designation or if he had like a diagnosis or anything, or if they saw anything problematic on those. But you'll just have to let me know. If somebody knows, feel free to pop it into the comments and let me know, because I didn't see it, but I missed stuff. So speaking of what's going to happen as things go forward, the one thing I want to chat about tonight is what is going to happen with the rotation. I think this is just going to be so interesting how the Mariners plan to figure this out, because there's so many moving pieces, right? You've got our current starting five are Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Brian Wu, Emerson Hancock, and Luis Castillo. And out of those five, Logan Gilbert has been really lacking efficiency and giving up a ton of hard contact. You've got George Kirby, who's been pretty well consistent. He's had a couple moments here and there, but for the most part, he's done really, really well. You've got Brian Wu, who up until the last two starts was looking really, really good and looking like he had every chance to continue, like pick up where he left off last year, which was, top 5 voting in Cy Young. And then you've got Emerson Hancock, who now is in the argument for the Cy Young. I don't think that's going to happen when you've got other guys out there, but just having he's just Emerson Hancock, what he is doing for the team right now, this has been the greatest audition for a starting pitching job in the rotation that I've seen in a very, very long time. He has nailed it. And then Luis Castillo, who has not looked like himself at all this year. He had the one really great start, his first start against the Yankees, and then otherwise it's been very challenging for him, and it's been really challenging to watch because you can see how frustrated he is. And like Gavin said last night when we were live, Luis Castillo is one of those guys who you want him in your clubhouse because he's great. He is so good with the team. He's such a good team guy. He's wonderful. But also at the same time, how serious is our team about winning? How serious is our front office about winning? And you cannot have a guy on the mound that every 5 days or every 5 games, I guess, you can't count on him. And he's going to give up contact, and he's going to give up runs. So that aside, you also have Bryce Miller, who is very close to coming back. You have Kate Anderson, who is just lighting up AA, absolutely lighting it up. I haven't looked at, I don't think he's had a start since then. He was sporting like an 0.67 ERA. And I mean, how many, I don't remember how many strikeouts, but it's an obnoxious number. He is doing so well there. Now, obviously I really do believe we have quite a bit of time, and that there's a lot of people chirping on social media about, oh, just bring up Kate Anderson. Like, what is he doing down in the minors? You can't, you can bring a guy right from AA. People do that. That happened. Most of our starting rotation did that as they moved through the minors. And also, you want to make sure that this guy is actually ready, and his handful of starts in AA probably doesn't indicate that he's quite ready yet, but he is he is a force, and he is going to do such a great job once he makes his way here. So with all that, I want to pop up this comment really quick. Also from the Great Gregor. Thank you for being here and for commenting and giving us stuff to chat about. But said you can't sit Castillo right. Maybe a 6-man rotation. I don't know. I don't know that they're going to do a 6-man rotation because, again, how serious is our front office about winning? Can you, like, do you feel comfortable having somebody in the rotation who every then 6 days is giving up enough runs that it's really hard to, it's hard to, it feels hard to justify that. But I don't think you can sit him either. I don't know that it seems really early in the year to move him to the bullpen too. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I kind of wonder, and Gavin and I ended up talking about this after we closed out last night. I've heard multiple people talking about, like, is some sort of IL stint in his future? Is there something going on with him that can be kind of checkmarked as, like, okay, this is a medical clearance situation. He needs some time to rest and get healthy. Is he dealing with arm fatigue? Is he dealing with shoulder tightness? Is there something that we can pin down to give him some time, bring Bryce Miller back in, get some wins under our belt and kind of set that aside for a little bit and then revisit, in, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. I don't know what that quite looks like, but we'll have to see. But the Mariners are in a predicament. I do not envy the decision makers for this, even though sometimes I act like I probably would want to make those decisions. I really don't. And I don't know how they're going to do that. And those are going to be some really, really challenging conversations to have with the guys in your starting rotation, especially a guy like Luis, who, he's been the anchor of our team for a while. He's been, so up until this year, he's been super consistent. He really is, I credit him for, in many ways, him and Brian Wu getting us to the postseason last year, because when Logan was hurt and Bryce was hurt and George Kirby was struggling, you had Luis Castillo and Brian Wu that you could count on to get you really good starts going through the early months of the 2025 season. And so, yeah, I don't envy those conversations at all. So, yeah, rough. Next one, I was just going to say this one, the King Chronic again. Thank you. Same thing. So glad you're here. Thank you for interacting and giving us stuff to chat about. Logan being inefficient and getting hard hit is very concerning going forward. We need him to get 6 to 7 innings a night and not a 5 and dive type. Seriously. This has been, it's very hard to watch your guy who's supposed to be your ace, right? The guy that I think for all intents and purposes was given the starting, like the opening day slot, because they're hoping to extend him. Looking at this version of Logan Gilbert, unless he starts turning it around, I'm not sure this is a guy that you're really wanting to prioritize extending, because you need a guy that can get you those innings. And if he's consistently, he made it 6 tonight, but it didn't feel great when he made it 6 because he got, he gave up those 3 runs and those 3 solo homers in the 6th. And I think, if all things were equal, I think that if we didn't have such a shortened bullpen and new guys that were just called up today or slotted in or traded for or picked up or whatever, we have all these, our bullpen is kind of this jigsaw puzzle of different guys. If we didn't have that situation, I don't think there's any way that Logan would have finished that inning. And yeah, you have to have him being more efficient. And then along that same line, yeah, Kate Anderson needs more time to lengthen out, needed him to get to the 85-90 pitch mark, give him the David Price path with the bullpen in September. I agree. I think that's the ideal plan, right? That is the ideal plan, that Kate Anderson could slot into the bullpen in September when the roster expands and see kind of how he's doing. I do think, though, that there is a chance he gets called up sooner than that. I don't think it's super likely, but I think there's a chance he could get called up sooner. But hopefully we don't need him before then and our guys start to figure it out. And then William, thank you again for being here. And yeah, Logan didn't have surgery for his flexor strain. I think, when you have a rotation and pitchers, ultimately they're the ones who get to make the decisions on what they do and what they don't. But it becomes pretty clear that there's stuff going on, and there's a really good chance that that's part of the problem. Moving on, I want to chat a little bit about the defense again. The defense did really, really well today. We kind of chatted about this. I'm just going to touch on this for a second, but I don't know how this is all going to shake out for the Mariners, especially like we were talking about earlier with Brendan Donovan coming back, hopefully this next week when we're in Chicago, or not this week here, just in a few days. I don't know quite how that's going to shake out, but the defense tonight, when I started writing out these notes today, I was thinking about yesterday's game, and one game like tonight does not take away from what the defense looked like in the 3 games against the Royals, because it was ugly. If the defense has got to do its job. So if your defense is not really on top of it with run prevention, it's going to be really hard to win games. And one of our mailbag questions is going to chat about this in a second, so I don't want to dive too far into it right now. But it kind of feels like whack-a-mole right now with the Mariners. It's like what part is struggling and what part is doing really well, and it changes on any given day. It's like you hit one of them, another thing pops up, right? That's kind of, it makes it really hard to win games if you don't have everything coming together really well. So we'll see what happens, but the defense tonight was really, really good, and I hope they manage to continue on that. And yes, I was just actually literally about to say this. Currently, right now, I don't know what tonight did for that, but the team is dead last on outs above average. Yeah, Gavin and I talked about that last night. It's really unfortunate that this is the case, because our defense, we haven't been known for like the best defense in the league. We have a really good center fielder who's struggling right now, but he's made some better plays in the last day or two. Randy Rosarena out in left field, he's not known for being an excellent defender. Our platoon out in right field nobody out there is known for being an excellent defender. Right now, you've got Cole Young holding down the fort with potentially being a Gold Glove winner this year, and that's about all we got. So, all right, I want to get to the mailbag questions. So if anybody in here wants to put some more questions into the chat, I would love to answer them. I'm going to go through the ones that I have already that I have saved on here already, and I'm going to pop them up one at a time onto the screen. But this first one came from Army Chow Mein. He's a great friend of the podcast here. He said, last year the M's traded for Gino and Naylor. Who are some under-the-radar trade targets for this coming deadline, and who are some headliners and their respective costs? So I'll be totally honest. I did not get time to research the different AAVs of different players and what that looks like and how that slots into the Mariners and their situation specifically. I do know that we managed to do pretty well on the spending in the offseason this year. And I believe part of that was in the hopes of spending at the deadline. And if they don't, just, I know I'm being that hopeless optimist M's fan, but we're going to believe that they will. I think the biggest thing they're going to target, especially with all the injuries they've had in their bullpen, is the reliever market. There's a handful of relievers out there. I was chatting with a couple of different people yesterday about, the Red Sox are really struggling. Would they be willing to potentially part with, Danny Columba, or Columbia? I'm trying to make sure I pronounce his name right. And then, is it Garrett Whitlock? He's got a lot of team control still, not team control, but he's still got a lot of time left on his contract, and I would imagine he's gonna be really expensive. So I don't think so, but that's an option. But I do think that the biggest thing is going to be the reliever market. That said, I do think that if we get to July and we are desperate for some power hitting, I think there's a really good shot that either Polanco or Gino are back with the Mariners. I've seen a lot of people talking about this. The Mets are on the struggle bus. I mean, they won today against the Rockies. Yay for them. But they have been struggling so bad. And Arizona has been okay, but not great. So if either one of them are going to be sellers at the deadline and the Mariners are in a position to try to make a run for it and they want to pick up some power, I really think that either one of those guys could end up back with us in July. And I would not complain, because coming into the season, I've been eating my words a little bit. I said that I really thought one of the biggest things for the Mariners that was going to be really good for us this year was that we were abandoning a little bit of that power hitting and moving a little bit more into that contact hitting side of things, with Brendan Donovan, Josh Naylor. I mean, obviously Josh Naylor can hit for power, but he's not necessarily your most like high powered guy. You've got we have a whole slew of guys who are supposed to be able to create contact and get on the bases and be pesky out there. And that has not really amounted to much. And so now I'm sitting here going, okay, maybe we really do need some more power in our lineup. So I think those are both a couple of guys that could end up back with us. But I do think it's either going to be a power bat or it's going to be a reliever or both. Wouldn't that be great? If we could get all that we want at the deadline, I think a whole bunch of Mariners fans would just pass out from shock. But anyway, next comment. This came in on Twitter. Ed Helinski. He said, without grading on a curve, what overall letter grade do you give the M's as we near the first quarter mark of the season, and why? So this made me laugh for many reasons, but one of which being that before I entered into this world, I was actually a high school English teacher. And so I'm very familiar with trying to give grades kind of like holistically. And I'm going to give you the answer that I came up with this morning before today's game, because as awesome as today's game was, I really hope it's the turning point and we just go forward with a whole bunch of momentum and a whole bunch of power. But I do think that there's some prevailing issues with the Mariners that today's win was maybe in spite of, not, they won in spite of these challenges versus, they won because of a lot of overcoming. And that sounds so negative, and I acknowledge that, but at the same time, I gave them a C+ when I was making up this grade in my head. And the reason I did that was because I see so much potential on this team. And when you think about a C grade, it's like, okay, you're not failing and you're not really in danger of failing, but you're also not performing at your best either. And when you look at the Mariners, and again, I'm not going to grade on a curve. So when you're looking at the rest of the AL West, you can't factor that in, but we are playing in the most mid division in baseball right now. Everybody is, relatively close to each other than Houston. I'm not happy about that. It's fine. They're playing in a division that is winnable still, even when they're struggling. But that aside, there's still so much potential for the Mariners to be the best version of themselves, because we're seeing the worst version of themselves. And this Kansas City Royals series was the worst version we saw of the Mariners this year. You can argue with me on that if you want, that some other moments were worse, but I don't think there's anything worse than what we saw this last weekend against Kansas City. And, they have so much potential, and they're still eking out wins somehow and making these things happen, but they've got a long ways to go before they're considered A grade. So there's that. I'm going to give them a C+. After tonight, I might consider moving that to a B-, but we got to wait and see. And then the last comment that I have, and then I'll hop over to our comment stream, was from my friend Jamie. This is actually a text message. She said, how would you rank these issues facing the Mariners currently in order of concern? A, defense, B, bullpen, C, Castillo, D, offense, or E, something else? And what I put into the something else category is our mental blunders, especially on the base paths, thinking about Randy and his out between first and second over the weekend. Just so rough, right? So I would say if I was going to rank something number one, it would be our defense, because there's a lot of things that you can overcome if your defense is playing really well, and our defense has not been playing really well. And there's also a lot of things that your defense can lose you games in a heartbeat if they're not playing properly. And yesterday with JP's kind of like sidearm, of course, to the eye test, right, as we would say, it looked like he barely made any effort on that ball, but I'm sure that there's more to it than that. I want to have some level of have a charitable heart towards JP, but it's been really rough to watch out there. And I know a lot of people are talking about the clip that came out from KJR radio today, talking about JP and by the metrics being the worst shortstop in baseball. And I want to be charitable to him, because I think he's been such a force on this team. And obviously he hit a massive home run tonight. And there's so much more to a player than just, being able to hit a home run in a clutch moment like he did, but also, his defense has been really, really struggling. Our defense just in general. And like we talked about earlier, the OAA has been awful. And then I would say probably the bullpen, and more concerned about that now with the injuries. Then, the offense, and the offense has had its really great moments, and they've also had some really not great moments. We've guys still striking out a ton, guys producing weak contact, guys who are just giving up, but they're producing so many outs, right? And then, the base running blunders, I would rank that. I might actually even rank that above offense, especially for factoring in just kind of like those mental errors, those little things that really just should be fundamentals for the team that they're not performing, or they're not producing those things. And then I'm going to rank Castillo low. I'm going to rank him on the lowest part only because I still think he has time to turn it around. I don't know what that's going to look like. But I think it presents a problem just because it's like, what do? You have a guy who's owed so much money over the next couple of years. The Mariners are not going to eat that. Anybody who's on social media saying that they're going to eat that money, I would be absolutely flabbergasted if they did that. The Mariners do not play like that with money. We know how that works. But yeah, we'll see. All right, hopping over here to the comment stream here. So looking mostly comments, not really questions, but let's pop this up. JP has lost a bit of his range, and unless he gets hot at the plate, I don't know how long they can play him every day there. How do you think the M's handle this over the course of the summer? Great question. Thank you again for another great comment. I'm not totally sure. I think that the biggest thing will be, does Colt Emerson start to show enough in AAA that he is going to be he's going to force the hand of the Mariners to call him up. As of right now, his offense is not amazing. So he's not really forcing the hand. He's really leaning into he needs more time in AAA. And in that case, it's just, there isn't anywhere to put him right now anyway. But if he forces their hand by going on a tear, really figuring things out at the plate, obviously defensively, he's been incredible in AAA. So I think that, that will translate, I think that's going to translate obviously a lot more easily into T-Mobile Park than his offense will, moving from AAA to the show. I think that whether JP starts to, I don't know that they're going to platoon him. I think ultimately what's going to end up happening is that JP is going to stay at shortstop because he has the loyalty there. I think that's what's going to happen. Then you have, I think you're going to end up having Colt Emerson slot in at third base. And then I think there's a really good chance you end up seeing Brendan Donovan move out to left field, and Randy's going to end up DHing. Randy's not going to want to DH, and that's the challenging part. He's on a contract year. He's likely going to, not be in a Mariners uniform next year. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but Brendan Donovan's, the position he's played second most over second base is left field. He's a lot better fit out there defensively than Randy is. Now, Randy's had some pretty good moments here in the last couple of days. That Superman catch was great, but I do think that we're going to end up with a better, I think that things are going to shake out a little differently with that, but we'll see. Okay, next one. Low-key think the Geno era is over in Seattle. I think so too, but I do think that if need be, if we really need a power hitter I said Arizona earlier. That was dumb. Cincinnati. Since if the Reds are struggling, I think there's a chance we could get him. I'm thinking about last year. But I think the more likely option is probably Jorge Polanco, and Mariners playoff hopeful. Thank you for being here. We've had some great interactions on X over the years, and I'm grateful that you're here. I would settle for a winning season. The Yankees are now the favorites. Yeah, I would settle for, a winning season would be great. I know that the Yankees are now the favorites. Going into, I don't know, the deadline last year, the Mariners were nowhere near favorites to win anything, and then they ended up winning the West and going all the way to Game 7 of the ALCS. There's a reason we call it chaos baseball in Seattle. Casey exposed the Mariner flaws, defense, rotation, left-handed lineup. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Castillo is going to be an expensive bullpen piece or some low-end trade bait at this rate. That is probably also true. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think that he's either going to go into the bullpen or, he's going to figure it out. I don't know, but I really don't see him getting traded unless we compare him with a strong prospect. But I think that's going to be, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So, and then I just want to pop this up here. This is my favorite Mariners channel. Thank you, Braun Mueller. That means the world to us. And we're so grateful that you're here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything else up here because, I think that's about everything. I'm very much believing the M's are going to go to the World Series. I know it's tough now, but I really believe it. I love that. And I think that a lot of us are still kind of retaining that hope. It's been really rough to start the season. I would say it's been a lot rougher than last year. We had a really great April last year, but we're going to have to wait and see. There's still a really good team. They have all the pieces to be an excellent team. So, and then last comment I'm going to address, if Randy does not want to DH, I wonder if they could get creative at the deadline and move him and a minor league piece for a legit bullpen piece. I think that's very much in play. I really do think that Randy has the option to be a trade piece at the deadline, and we could go get a legit bullpen arm. I don't know what that looks like. As long as it would just be the piece with that would be you'd have to make sure that you can get that Colt Emerson is ready to come up, take the third base spot so that Brendan Donovan can move out to left field. And then you have your fielding situation sorted out. But I'm not sure, but we definitely need bullpen help. And I think we're going to end up needing some power at the plate come July if we're going to make a run at it. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. This has been a super fun mailbag episode. It was really great chatting with all of you and getting to hear your questions and talk through all these different things. And hopefully the Mariners can go out and get another win or two. Oh my gosh, how great would it be if they swept the Braves? That'd be such Mariners fashion. But anyway, thank you all for being here. I'll be doing these Mailbag Mondays pretty often going forward. So looking forward to enjoying these questions with you guys going forward for the rest of the season and chatting about our favorite team in baseball. All right, everybody, have a wonderful Monday. Thanks again for being here. I'm Emily with Up West Sports. Thanks for being here for the Hold My Trident podcast. And looking forward to talking to you all again soon.